There still remains romanticization in the popular image of the samurai. For those that study Japan, though, the darker aspects of samurai history and warfare have been known for quite some time. This video is meant to go along with something mentioned by the Shogunate in his video on casualties and death toll, and also a video by Anthony Cummins on the Samurai and Ninja History channel, both of which I will link in the description. This is not meant to agree or disagree with anyone. I am just putting some of my broad, very general thoughts out there. It is essentially about how samurai are perceived. It is not my objective to tell you what to think. My main point in this video is that we need to try our best to look at them honestly. Finding proper visuals for this has proved to be a bit tricky, so at the time I'm recording I'm not sure what's going to be on the screen. This will be an audio-only video, as odd as that sounds though, meant to be listened to rather than watched. Let's be upfront and clear. Many samurai and ashigaru probably would have been guilty of what we today would consider war crimes. Outside of war, many would have probably also been guilty of what we now consider crimes. Now, some of these were also considered illegal or criminal, or however you wish to put it in the proper context for the period, in their time as well. And some were not illegal per se, but were frowned upon. However, enough military might could often make legality irrelevant for the samurai if they were willing to use or even just threaten to use it. They would use violence and military force to expand and protect their interests, land, their wealth, and authority. There was death, pain, trauma, and destruction as a result. Sparing or targeting non-combatants was usually based on which course of action had the most benefit. Theft, arson, torture, assassination, the use of what today might be considered child soldiers, extortion, looting corpses, enforced labor, sexual assault, including against children, and numerous other acts, while not always committed, were not rare. A common tactic was to set an enemy's residence on fire and then kill all who tried to escape the smoke and the flames. Men, women, children, servants, everyone. It is important to keep in mind, though, that these were not the sum total of what the samurai were. In rejecting the romantic notion of the samurai, we do not want to swing too far in the other direction and present them as solely bloodthirsty killers. The samurai were among the groups that influenced, but also were products of their times. This does not negate the possibility of truly sadistic samurai or samurai with psychopathic or sociopathic tendencies. Samurai were not the only ones who engaged in violence or threats of violence for their own benefit. Villages would fight against each other as well. Now, local jisamurai would usually have been involved as well, but these were village-on-village fights, not for the ambition of samurai. Often this was for resources as well, such as farmland, timber, precious metal deposits, fishing and hunting grounds, water supplies, etc. These created death and destruction as well. Villages would also fight against local and regional samurai or lords. Religious sects, and sometimes religious institutions of the same sect, would also fight each other. Sometimes these groups would also fight against the local or regional samurai or lord. In the late 16th century, some even against the national hegemon. Often these conflicts were also about resources, but sometimes there were also religious reasons. The story of pre-modern Japan is much more complex than just the samurai or if they were good or bad. I am interested in trying to make that story a bit clearer. As inadequate as I am for that task, I still have a long way to go. Japan from the 14th to 17th century especially was a turbulent time. It was not the absolute chaos of popular image, but it was a time of increased violence and instability. As Mr. Cummins says in his video, the samurai could have been happy having their plot of land and their servants and their soldiers. All of these, of course, some had more than others. However, he also mentions that this probably has not been a thing for a very long time. The samurai were by no means the first or only group to use force to get what they wanted and achieve domination, not even in Japan itself. Centuries before the first samurai, there was a tribal clan group in central Japan. In Japanese, these groups are called uji, and although I intend to explain them later, now is not the time, and it's a little hard to define them really into English. This uji, called Yamato, became powerful locally, and then it spread its influence. Through diplomacy and conquest, the Yamato brought other uji into submission or eliminated them. In time, the Yamato Uji became the early imperial family. The study of history is meant to try to give us a better understanding of the past. One thing that study has shown us is that there are a number of dark chapters in that past. So what we need to do when studying the samurai is to try to look at them and present them honestly. And that is my main point. The samurai were not angels, not demons, but people. And so we have come to the end for now, I think. I tried to keep this short. I know this is not fully fleshed out, but I wanted to put some general ideas out there to consider. I touched on some things I may like to go into in the future in more depth. So until next time, thank you very much for watching. Please consider rating, sharing, commenting, and subscribing. Again, the Shogunate and Anthony Cummings videos will be linked in the description. Links to Twitter and Facebook are also in the description. それじゃ、お疲れ様でした。